To let us play sounds from anywhere in our game, the first thing we'll need is a piece of code that we can access from anywhere. The easiest way to do this is with a pattern called a singleton. If you're not familiar with it, I do recommend looking at other resources because it's really popular with Unity. But just to summarize, essentially we can make an object of a class accessible globally by declaring a static variable of the same type and then initializing that inside await. So we'll use that inside our game manager later on to let us call this playSound function, even though the game manager doesn't have a reference to the audio manager. We'll be able to call that from anywhere. Before we look at that, I want to have a quick look at the three parts that make up being able to play sounds in Unity. So the first part is an audio clip, which represents the actual sound that we want to play. So we can see in the editor on our audio manager, I just have an array of audio clips and I've dragged some sounds in there. You can see here in the project window, these are the actual sound files. So if you drag them into the editor, then their data type will be audio clip. Going back to the code, the second part we're going to need is an audio source, and that gets used to play the actual sound. So the role of an audio source is to play an audio clip, which is our sound file. So I'll show you in the inspector. I have an audio source template as a child of my audio manager. We'll use that to create a bunch of sources later on, but first let's just have a look at how the audio source is configured. So you can see the first variable here is an audio clip. So again, an audio source plays an audio clip. There's a lot of different ways to configure this, especially if you're worried about 3D sounds. I'm not, so under 3D sound settings, I've just gone and turned all those values down to 0. And I've also turned the spatial blend to be all the way down to 2D. We'll often want more than one sound to play at once, so that's why we have an audio source template here that inside the code we'll use to populate this audio source array that I've made. You can make this any size, you can even change it to grow if you want. I've chosen 32 because I think it's unlikely we'll ever have more than that many sounds playing. So inside Awake, when we start up the game, we loop through all of the audio sources that we have in the array, which will be 32 because we've already initialized it. And then we make each of those indexes equal to calling instantiate on our audio source template. So we'll make a copy of that template for every source that we need. So if we go and run the game, then we can see after booting up, our audio manager now has 32 children for all the potential audio sources. So now that we have the audio clips on the manager and we're creating the audio sources when the game begins, we can go ahead and play our actual sounds. So we have two variables at the start here just to say that we're going to need an audio source to play our audio clip. So this means for our code, the first thing we need to do is find an audio source to play. So we loop through each of our audio sources and we look for one that isn't currently playing. And if we do find it, then we set that audio source variable to the one we found. And if we manage to get to the end of the loop and we still don't have an audio source, then that means all of the sounds are being played and we'll return and there won't be a sound being played. Again, this is pretty unlikely because we have 32 sounds, but it's just important to be aware of how the code's working. So once we have an audio source to play the clip, the next thing is to convert the clip name that we've passed into our playSound function into the actual audio clip, the actual sound file. The reason we have a string here instead of the actual audio clip is because we don't want the rest of the code to have to know about that. So going back to our game manager, you can see we just type in the string, the name of the sound, and then our audio manager will look through all of those clips, find a clip that has the name that we passed in, and then set this audio clip variable to the one that we find. And just like our audio source, if we can't find anything, then we will return. I put an error message here just because we do expect to only be playing sounds that we actually have. So if you make a typo or something, this will let you know that you've typed in the wrong sound name. So once we've successfully found an audio source and an audio clip, we can set the clip on the source to the clip that we just found, and then we can call audio source play, and that will start the sound actually playing. We also have a volume control here, so the sounds I'm using are quite loud. So this is a number between 0 and 1, so I've just set it to 0.15 to make it a bit quieter. So now that we have a play sound function that will find an audio source and find the audio clip we're looking for and play it, then we can go ahead and actually play our sounds, which we'll do inside the game manager. I've set up just a simple menu here that has 3 buttons for the 3 different sounds: confirm, minimize, and drop. And then on the game manager, I've just added 3 variables for each of those buttons, and I've just dragged them from the menu into the game manager in the inspector. Then inside start, we're just hooking up a function to when each button gets clicked. So when the confirm button gets clicked, this function will get called, and the same for minimize and for drop. All these functions are doing is just calling play sound and then passing in a string that matches the name of the sound file we want to play. So let's go ahead and test that and see if it works. You can see when we click on each of the buttons, the corresponding sound will be played. One thing I have missed just at the end here is the only way we can hear all of these sounds is with the audio listener component that usually sits on your main camera. So just to summarize, we have an audio listener that lets us actually hear the sounds. We have an array of audio clips, which represent our sound files. And then we have an audio source that will be used to play our sound files. And when the game starts, we're creating a bunch of them to let us play multiple sounds at once, which we'll do through this play sound function that will attempt to find the audio source that's free and the audio clip that matches the name we've passed in. And then it will set the clip on the audio source and call play on it.